Audible Angle is back. We are not doing the real caught unawares by the video. We're actually starting this time. We got some feedback from viewers. As much as I like a 25-minute intro of me meandering, a bunch of sidebars, we do have time constraints, so good for the listeners today. We're going to try to get right in to a big weekend of sports. I do admit I was watching a good portion of the Brewer game at Church Fall Festival Bingo, but I did have the video run on the phone, saw every play, and I did, thankfully for Brew Crew fans, I did call the Terang home run. One pitch before he hit it, I said to my wife, like, we need this guy just to rip a solo, just get a little room here, get a run, 2 outs, and just rip it yourself, get out of here. So Saturday recap. How was your ball watching experience and how tense were you?
Um, we really didn't end up needing that Terang homer, but it sure did feel good. I would tell you that, right? Kind of made it really a little bit relieving. It's a little concerning, which is going to go into my concerns for tonight, to be honest, Dilly. I don't know how long a team can last throwing pitchers the way we throw pitchers. Like, it just is one of those things. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it was necessarily a comfortable game, but it wasn't pins and needles. How about I put it that way?
Yeah, it didn't reach the level of real stress. Obviously, chasing from behind would have been a very uncomfortable feeling, for the third game in a row to get behind would have felt bad. And maybe that was just a little bit of the difference. You get a run early so you don't feel that pressure like, are we ever going to score? What's going to happen? And you get a little bit of a lead and that was enough to feel comfortable. But it certainly wasn't my completely uneducated opinion of or prediction of a very comfortable blowout, but it was relatively a slow build towards comfort.
Yeah, I think the Brewers I think it probably went pretty close to plan if you were to kind of pin Murphy down to what was your plan as far as pitching. There was some touch and go moments there with Ashby, which concerns me going into tonight. Him being just announced as he's going to be the opener for tonight's game. But as far as recap, I think we did just miss, and in that game, we missed the timely hitting that we need. I mean, bases loaded, 2 outs, Perkins is there. You get one hit there, and all of a sudden it's 4-1, 5-1, and kind of the floodgates go open, and that's the timely hits that we need. The Brewers did what they needed to do on defense. They were always going to be, I kind of got a little annoyed. I don't know if you did. Maybe you didn't hear it, but the announcers seemed to be a bit skewed to the side of the Cubbies, to be honest. And that makes sense, right? It's a higher revenue dollar for if the Cubs are playing tonight instead of the Brewers. But everything was the Cubs are the best defense in the National League, and I'm pretty sure it's pretty touch and go there as far as the Brewers and the Cubs. Maybe statistically the Cubs probably have an edge, but what is playoff baseball? Mistake here or there, an overthrown thrown ball from a Gold Glover shortstop in Swanson, and we've got bases loaded, but we didn't take advantage.
You brought up pitching already once, and it's very contrasting situations where the Dodgers seem to be fairly set up pitching wise. Of course, in the playoffs, especially, that can change in 2.5 innings. They can blow up the whole plan. They're going to throw out their string of starters for 6-7 innings, and everybody's happy. We got to get on top of that early, most likely. We're not set up in that type of formation, right? Is this going to be officially called a bullpen game, or is this just, are we kind of darn near all arms on deck for the first couple games here, rest a couple guys for 3 and 4?
Well, what I'm hearing is that we're gonna the opener is whenever you hear the term opener used, you think it's a bullpen game. I don't know if this is going to be prototypical opener bullpen game because Ashby and what I'm hearing, Dilly, is that most likely they could throw Priester following Ashby, which would be our normal rest because Priester would be throwing on normal rest today if he would just open. Which that question's the only reason that I would guess Murphy doesn't throw him to start is because of the left-handed heavy top of the lineup for the Dodgers. The Dodgers start, I think there's 3 or 4 straight left-handed hitters. Mookie, I think, is a switch hitter, if I'm correct. And then you've got Freeman, and then one of the Hernandez boys, no relation, I'm sure, but Teoscar, I think, is a left-handed hitter as well. So what we're trying to do there is throw lefty versus lefty in a matchup problem, and then go with Priester, maybe mess their lineup up, but I don't know if they really care enough because Ashby would have to go 4 innings to get through them twice to really mess something up. But I think that's what you're going to find is we're going to get a Ashby for maybe 2 or 3, depending on how he pitches. Hopefully he goes 4. I mean, he's got the capability stretched out to go 4. And if that's the case, then you might see a Chad Patrick come in after Priester and save Priester for Game 3. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think are movable parts here, but I do believe that pitching has got to be the biggest question mark for the Brewers coming into a 7-game set with only 2 days off during this. But I will tell you, I didn't think they were set up well in the Game 5. I didn't necessarily like it because I thought that the Cubs bullpen was in much worse shape than us, and those days off gave them time to breathe. But here's the deal. I'd love the same thing to have a game 1, game off, game 2, game off, to give our bullpen a chance so that this kind of mentality could work. But we're going to have to go back-to-back here to start at home.
How critical, I don't know if you really say Vegas anymore these days because, there's a sports book everywhere except Minnesota.
And Wisconsin.
Not sure why, unfortunately, but Dodgers are favored in Game 1 a bit. It's not outrageous, but they're the odds-on favorite. In your estimation, as a stronger Brewer fan, and I won't say analyst, that puts a lot of pressure on you if I call you an analyst, but how critical, it's always critical to win a game. Is it extra critical for the Brewers do they need to get 2 while they're at home here with the pitching situation, or is 1 out of 2 enough to kind of keep them in there?
That's a good question. Let me answer it 2 ways. Number 1, ideally you want to take advantage of home field. I mean, you heard both managers talk about that. I listened to Craig Counsell after the Cubs match, and he was like, yeah, it's always fun, but there's different challenges, right? It's kind of fun to, in a player's mentality and maybe in just Craig Counsell's mentality, to play in a hostile environment. And I'm sure there's a challenge in its own that you can bring yourself up to that. And I'm not certain. I believe that the fan base is much different in LA than it is in Chicago. Let's be honest. Like, those fans are not the same. They're not created equal. I think they're late arrivers in LA. But to answer your question simply, yeah, I think it's important for us, if we want to win this series, we win both. But I also don't think it's the end of the world if we don't. Through 162 games, the Brewers never lost 4 in a row. There was through the regular season, they didn't lose 4. I think they got swept 3, maybe 3 times. I believe they got swept. They beat, if you recall, and I'm sure this is on your mind, the Brewers beat the Dodgers all 6 games this year. They swept them twice. They caught them early in the first 3-game set, but towards the end of the season, they got them again. Now, here's the difficulty. If you believe in analytics, and I know you do, it's tough I'm pretty sure it's going to even out at some point here. I just hope it doesn't even out 5 games on the wrong side here, or 4 games, if you will.
Believe it or not, I do peruse the available information on the internet quite a bit as sports are related sports items, and I did see that the Brew Crew was 6-0 against the Dodgers. A couple days ago, I probably would not have known that. I have been watching the Dodger games. My household is a little weird. In addition to being married into a Mexican family, one of the only ones that is not really interested in soccer, which is weird enough. Also, New York Yankees fans. Love the Yankees, hate the Dodgers. So we already have some built-in disdain for the Dodgers, which I'm happy. Wife is not a huge sports fan overall. Jumps on board every year for playoff baseball in the World Series. So we watch a lot of playoff baseball, and so I have watched some of the Dodger playoff games. They're Yankees West kind of. Everybody knows they have a big payroll. Who do you have to worry the most about, or is it just you just got to hold them all down? Is there anyone in particular that you'd like to see go 0 for 4? I mean, who doesn't like Shohei Ohtani? I mean, let's be honest. It's about the only guy that it's hard not to like that guy.
Well, let me throw some stats at you. Just top of the mind, speaking of perusing the interwebs, I believe I read today in the postseason this year, Ohtani is hitting a mere 185. And again, if you believe in analytics, you know that Shohei Ohtani is not going to continue at that pace, so he's probably going to get his hits here and there. But I do believe, if you're asking me who I'd like to see not hit well, I believe Mookie Betts is one of the best hitters in the league, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of Freddie Freeman. I think he frustrates me a little bit that he left for the money. He was in a good situation there at Atlanta. He left on kind of poor terms from Atlanta, but he rushed for the money. So it is what it is. I will tell you, I think the key is the Brewers can kind of get over. Are you getting static on your side?
I'm not getting static. I've had a couple. I think it's actually internet. I don't think it's audio, but I got a couple of little bling blargs. But I think we're catching all the audio. So
all right. I do think the guy that we have to be concerned about, and if we can get an offer out of Teoscar Hernandez, that would be helpful. If you do recall, I believe it was 18 when we had the chance to go to the World Series in Game 7 against the Dodgers. It was Kiki Hernandez who kind of gave us the old hey-ho kind of last ditch there. So I'd like to see both Hernandez get the collar. But more so, I think Teoscar, because I think he's who makes that offense tick. You've got some strength. Mookie is going to get on base, but he's not going to hit a lot of home runs. Ohtani's swinging for the fences. That's where he's at right now at the top of the. So it doesn't really hurt us a ton, Dilly, if he goes and hits a solo home run to start. And here's the deal: we saw it happen in 4 games out of the 5 against the Cubs, and we were just fine. We won 5, so.
Yeah, should be mentally resilient to opening inning home runs by the opposition. I was actually glancing down here to see if lineups were finalized yet. I don't. Seems early, and it is. They're not up there yet. At least where I'm looking. Brewers tweak their lineup, their batting order a little bit from time to time. Any preference to you there?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I think we're a more dangerous side if Yelich is hitting in the 4-hole. I think that Churio needs to get as many at-bats as possible because I think he's, especially right now through the first 5 games of the postseason, he's hitting on more of a consistent basis. Yelich didn't come to play, man. I mean, he didn't make enough contact for me in the first series. But I do think he's due, and he's going to get his hits. But we need to get him up with guys on base. I like that Terrain may have kind of shook his, I'm going to call it a slump in those 5 games. I mean, he was hitting 2 for 16. That's no good. I mean, and both of those two hits came in
might be
game
recording
one.
solo here for a second.
So we've got to make sure that we have more
reconnect.
out of terrain.
Make sure we have stable.
It would be nice.
This could be my
two
internet.
Bonus hits here. Two bonuses is if Sal Frelick gets on base towards the bottom,
internet.
And whatever we get from Ortiz is a bonus. Anything we get from Ortiz is a bonus. Have I lost you completely? I like this. This is kind of an interesting effect when a guy freezes. We haven't had this happen yet, but here we are, and Dilly is completely frozen. So, in order to keep this rolling and keep this update rocking and rolling, I do want to mention I had a couple of more points here to make on the Brewer game this evening. I think that the Brewers' main key, as I said, is to get our squad kind of rolling, and I think the catalyst of that is going to be a little bit of Sal Frelick as well as Bryce Terang. I think our first baseman, Vaughn and Bowers, have been playing well. Both of them got a home run in the first 5 games set. But really the main point that we're going to be kind of catching on to this is we've got to make sure that we get on base and get the running game happening, right? We need to stop the swing and misses. We have to play the way we can moving forward.
We got some good news for the listeners. Irby, you were continuing to record after I disappeared. So we got all of your answer there on the lineup. Not 100% surprised. I had a little internet problem there. We can troubleshoot that later, but I had a competing internet situation that I went and ripped a secondary router off the bookshelf and smashed it into the ground. That seemed to fix everything. So appropriately down to one router, and one internet service. That's all you need. I had 2 for some reason. It seemed like the end of your summary there was gotta, go the Brewers way. Have runners on, have some pressure on them, keep the bases occupied and try to generate some runs kind of continuously.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think at this point we're going to have to out-hit them. I mean, and that's a tall order to be out-hitting the Dodgers. But at the end of the day, we get to, if we're in the game at the 5th or 6th inning and beyond, I think we've got a very legitimate chance to win the series. We just can't get buried by poor starting pitching. We just have to be serviceable. And it doesn't have to be great starting pitching either. I mean, this starting pitching that we have is really get us 4 innings every game. Really, get us to 5 or 6, and get us within the mix. And then I think we're going to be fine because our back end of the bullpen is strong. It's just we have to find a way to get to the 6th inning and still be in game.
Yeah, and maybe we have to be on the right side of the double-edged sword of, you think, boy, you wish you had just 4 dominant pitchers that you roll out there and get you 6 innings. That'd be great. I guess if you're trying to be positive on the state of the Brew Crew staff right now is teams that have that, if you have a pitcher or 2 go bad, then you're in total disarray. Even if you had 4 starters in a row that you think you're rolling out, it totally, if we get 3 good innings out of a guy, gets a little shaky, that's just another day.
I agree. I mean, we're used to that adversity, and that might be to our advantage. The Dodgers, let's call a spade, Dilly. The Dodgers have really only found their bullpen towards the last few games of the regular season and in the postseason. Like, their stars that you see at the back end of their bullpen are not stars that are used to the bright lights. These guys are stars that are just into that role, and we're going to have to pressure test that. And I think there's an advantage there of, not only with our team being kind of too young to know any better, but also like too young to really put too much pressure on themselves because we're playing with house money at this point.
Herbs, let's move to predictions here. We got a good 20 minutes here for the listeners, and with the internet sketching out and splicing together two audios that I have ahead of me, time is winding down to get this all together and out for listeners that may tune in before the game, or certainly by after the game. You want listeners to be able to jump in and be able to mock us in our naivety or stupidity, whichever they choose. Do you have, what's the Irby version of a couple hours from now?
I'd like to say that we can get through. I mean, it really, as far as where Ashby's going to take us, right? Ashby's going to be that opener. If he gets through 3 innings, I think we're fine. I would like us not to go to the Miz in Game 1 because I'd like to hold that kind of in our pockets. I do see us hitting well because we're at home. We feel comfortable. We're kind of riding high. I see this as being a high-scoring affair. I do see us giving up a few runs in the first 4 innings. I think we give up 2 or 3, but we kind of Band-Aid it up, and that's where it stops. But I think we win this game 7-3, 7-2. But that does mean getting there. But I like it means getting to their starter. But I think that's possible if we take pitches. I like our odds. I think that's going to be a ruckus home crowd. We're excited to be there. So I see us having, at the end of the day, Dilly, we win by 3 runs.
Okay. That's I like the sound of that, and I do, if you try to be an optimist, Game 1 is where you can ride some energy from the crowd. You can be hyped up to be there. You can get by on that a little bit. We have a shorter turnaround. Maybe you can always argue it's like a bye week in the NFL, rusty or not rusty, whatever. Forgot the other side of that term, but, we're coming off of what we're used to now. Night off, play again. Night off, play again, Dodgers had a little bit longer rest and some travel. We just stayed at home, got one night rest, and back to business. Crowd should be jacked up, and hopefully we just get out of here feeling good. And I don't know if we'll necessarily have the time to get in here again before Game 2. I've been saying I'm optimistic, but let's get 1. Let's leave Milwaukee with at least 1. And we'll feel okay about that. That's getting by is getting 1. Getting 2, we're going to be back on here having the conversation. You got to take advantage of it now. You can't let them just send it back. You can't just stand firm and count on a Game 7. You got to get 1 there. But that'd be a good thing to have to worry about.
I agree, Dilly. I think if you do get 1 out of 2 at home, it's a win. I think 2 is possible. We've got to hold on to our shorts. I think let's see what happens in Game 1, because Game 2 is Willie. Freddie Peralta. I think we're going to be okay with him on the mound. He's pitched well at home. He showed well in Game 5 in the first 5-game series. I like it. I like our chances coming out 2-0. But I wouldn't be disappointed in 1 game, as you say.
We got time for 1 miscellaneous topic?
Yeah, let it rip if you got it.
I sent you a picture, I believe, of a buck. And I'm going to send you a follow-up video here. If you get it here, you could do a live reaction to it via text message. But you can probably guess once I give you the topic. You can probably guess what it is, but how bad, or if ever, did you encounter a case of buck fever when you're deer hunting?
Easy answer, and that goes all the way back to when I was 12 years old. My first buck that I shot. I was the first time sitting alone in a deer stand. I remember I have my old 30-06, which I still love that gun. Pump action Remington was my grandfather's gun, so still have it in the gun cabinet. Doesn't get shot anymore, but opening morning, out comes what I thought was a ginormous buck. It was a spike.
Nice.
I had 5 shots in the old clip, and I let it probably get out a little bit too far into the field. I was hunting over an open field, an alfalfa field. I could see my cousin Jeff. He was in a deer stand straight across. I could also see my dad's blaze orange, so I wasn't too far away. This deer comes out, and I swear I put the crosshairs right on the front shoulder, was ready to pull the trigger, pulled the trigger, the deer did nothing. I levered out another gun, or pump action, another shell in, shot it again. Now it starts to run. Now I'm shooting at a running deer. The fourth shot, I missed the first 3, clean, in my opinion. The fourth shot, it's full run, and now getting out to like maybe 75, further out than I probably feel comfortable, and I'm sitting in a stand and pull the trigger, and it rolls, and it's still alive, and it's trying to kind of grind out of, like, into this little fence line. So I give it one more, which was my fifth shot. And that was all I had at that time. I know I had an extra clip in my pocket somewhere, but I'm not kidding you. It sat there and never moved. I could still see it, but I am screaming at Jeff to, like, he knows I'm shooting, but he doesn't really see the deer because it's high. I'm running around, like, I'm screaming. I'm standing. I'm doing this thing. I sit down, and my leg, I'm not kidding you, was pounding. Like, my right leg was jumping off of it, like banging off of the thing that I shot this ginormous deer. And I remember I found the clip that I was going to put in my gun so I could get down from this 10-foot deer stand, which was probably only like 7 feet off the ground. And I literally was shaking so badly, I dropped my clip into the snow from the thing. So I had no shells whatsoever. Now so I ran over to the deer, which spooked it more. And at that time, Jeff finally saw me. I'm like, you need to help me shoot this deer because it's half alive. And even when I got to the deer itself, he did end up finishing it off because it wasn't going to go any further. I had ended up getting it a little high. It couldn't really run off at all. But he finished it off, and I remember standing over, and I was still shaking unbelievable amounts. But that was my first ever deer and probably the worst buck fever I've ever had.
Well, the one I sent you is my nephew, obviously Rod's son, and it's before the shot, which is pretty great. And literally as we were sitting here, he sent me the video last night, and he just sent me a couple more. So I think I might send you a couple more to follow up. But just be thankful. I guess you were sitting by yourself, but nowadays with, of course, sitting there with your dad or uncles and whoever, any dumb thing you do, they're going to be sitting there with their phone recording you. So, he took it pretty well, but he's definitely shaking. And then he's like, Dad, turn this, they're whispering, but hey, turn it off. Come on. But he got him. So I'll get the fuller story of how it went. He doesn't know this. Maybe he'll listen to this someday, but if I won't give him any shit about it because his burn back to me would be, well, Uncle Jimmer, how was your first buck fever experience or whatever? And I would say, well, I never got to sit there and watch a buck, especially a big, wide 8-pointer, just kind of mosey around and meander in. I'm sure if I did, I would have, I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have shot at, tried to take a 250-yard shot and just scare him off. The only real buck that I hit was basically, I did kind of see it. It was coming out of where a tornado went through, so real thick brush, couldn't really see it. So it was maybe like a 2-second, like, hey, is that a deer? Boom! And it was a single shot 20 gauge. So boom, 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 and that thing was on a dead sprint. I did get 3 shots off. I hit it high in quarters, and then it jumped a barbed wire fence, and a pseudo cousin that we didn't hunt with and was from a different side of the family, like we knew them. They kind of surrounded our woods, and he shot like 10 times, and it was a 3-pointer, like just, more than a spike, barely. And he just, he held firm that it was his deer, and it was, because I didn't knock it down, but it was laboring. He had an easier time getting off shots because it wasn't moving too fast, but so that's the only buck I never got. My other stories are much more, shooting across my chest and belly once because I was laying up against a tree taking a snooze, and all of a sudden there's some does standing right next to me, and I just kind of tried that shot. That didn't work. The most classic deer hunting thing I have is my dad asking me, well, did you hit it? Whenever I shot, and I was like, not sure. Which way did it go? No idea. So, generally speaking, I was likely in a state of buck fever. I just never hit one enough to really get the final reward at the end. I got a lot of weird looks too from my dad sometimes. Like, what do you mean you don't know which way it went? I was like, you shot like 4 times. Like, where'd it go? There's one piece of fur here that could be from a deer, maybe, but was there? I think they were thinking sometimes, was there even a deer, or was I just shooting branches or something?
I've got a few stories in the years, and I used to, you do know that I used to heavily deer hunt. I've gotten away from it a little bit now that the duck hunting is kind of the flavor of the day. But I've shot a fair amount of deer. I will tell you that I don't believe that I've gotten any that are as nice as your nephew's is that I see in the picture. It's a nice deer, but it's always still exciting. I would guess if I shot a spike today, it's still an exciting experience to shoot anything that large, because a deer is a big animal. I mean, they're probably 120. The average buck that we used to shoot was 125, 145 pound deer. That's a small size human. It's a big animal, and it's never a slow process. It's always adrenaline pumping, and it's always I mean, to this day, I think I always recall after I would shoot and be like, was I shooting in front? Like, what was behind the deer? What was, like, always second guessing if I was being safe and such. Hopefully everybody else thinks that way, but I guess I was.
Yeah, once you're out there for about 5, well, maybe it's just the first time you shoot, you're like, yeah, I get why we got to wear all this blaze orange now, because you need that. And if you're kind of, especially a moving deer or something, you really got to be like, whoop, So yeah. I had one, which again, we don't have to get into all the stories here, but I had one. Where's my dad and I? We're grabbing lunch. That was my dad's favorite thing to do. He'd go out in the morning, then he'd go in to grab a snack from about 8 a.m. to noon, and then come out again for 45 minutes, and then say, I'm going to head back for a snack again. But so we're right out where the cars were parked once, and there's one running across the field, and kind of and I actually don't think I shot once because he was like in front of me, but it was kind of like one of those where he would have gone like that and like got swung right across somebody, and that's at 14 or 15. That's the quality of hunter safety programs and stuff that it was, and always the safety protocols was enough, even as a ramped up kid, that I was like, yep, I'm not in a spot where I can shoot at this one because I'll be swinging across. Eventually I'll be like, fine, people, fine. So I think I did 0 shots at that one, but sandwiches and candy bars, best part of deer hunting.
We called those bucks lunchtime bucks, and we used to go out and grab a lunch, and we could see the big field across where our 30, 40 acre field or 40 acre woods that we used to sit in. Could see the field coming across in every lunchtime. I'm not kidding you. Every time that it felt like we were eating lunch, there would be a deer that would cross that woods. It's because everybody else got out of the woods for lunch at the same time, right? So there was a number of times where I would try to get in for lunch at 10 o'clock and be back in my stand for noon. And I shot a number of bucks because of that, because they would just run right by. I finished off a couple of them for some of the guys on the crew that they had got a few lead poisoning on the way through across the road, if you will. Have some stories that I won't go on tape with that may have ended with me killing some deer near the roadway. Cannot confirm nor deny that may or may not have happened. But it's was some fun times for about 25 years that I had some pleasure. Now, deer hunting around is, you know this, you kind of were dealing with that problem long before I was. It's hard to get land. Hard to get people to allow you to duck hunt or deer hunt on their land.
Yeah, and you gotta. It's not only the land. Sometimes it's got to be land that you can get to. Also, I mean, now I do call our good friend of the show, or future friend of the show, I'm sure, Bear Olette. He's got some land. It's a couple hours away, but he sets it up real nice. So I and my brother set up, which I can get into another time too. He lucked into it where, it's like prepared, maintained, monitored with trail cams and stuff by somebody else for him. So he just gets to roll up opening morning like, hey, everybody. I mean, he goes and helps a little bit, but my point was going to be, it's got to be close enough too where you can get out there a couple times too and set up stands and go work on your stands and know the area. And if it's 4 hours away and some guy that you sort of know that tolerates you, it's hard to be out there enough to really hunt it anyway. But you got a hard 445.
Yeah, a lot of ownership comes into that stuff too. They own the deer, which is because they own the property, and all of the 13 or 14 bucks that reside on that land at any given time. So, okay. Yeah, I think we covered a good amount. I do think that there's probably another episode coming up, Dilly. Don't you think that let's cover that Packer Bungles game? I think there's. I'm
excited to break down the Packers game. I'm guessing we're going to have some discussion points there because it had some of the classic things that Packer fans are getting a little fatigued of. Special teams pretty good, so hats off there. But yeah, the economic slowdown in different periods of the game, just not quite getting over the hump. There's some stuff there. There's some meat to get into, and we'll happily do that soon. Certainly before next week's game, we'll always try to recap the previous game and get ready for the next game. I'll tell you what, if it could be a good thing, we'll try to get to that. But if we get blown away by some great Brewers action over the next couple days, first maybe we got to do a doubler, a little bit longer one, or just do another couple episodes.
Yeah, I think either way we're going to have to unpack whatever Murph and the Brew Crew have in store. I do know it's going to be exciting. I don't see a 6-0 loss tonight. I'd be surprised. I think we're going to put up some runs. I think it's going to be exciting. I think we've got a fighting chance, man. I'm looking forward to unpacking that in our next episode as well. So I think we've got a couple episodes that people can kind of climb onto here this week. And
we're either as smart as we think, or everybody thinks we're dumb. Either way, hopefully they'll like what they hear. And I might even go so far. I'm going to have to tonight go so far as to combining two separate videos since we had the internet problem. And hell, one of these days I might how to add a banner or graphic or insert a video. With this, you're witnessing from the bottom up. This is going to be an adventure.
Hey, just a side note real quick before you sign off, Dilly. We were right. Chiefs beat the Lions.
Oh, we knew it. Yeah, we were on it before anybody.
You heard it.
Hope you put a big bunch of money on it in states where it's legal.
Have a good night, fella.
See you soon. Go Crew.